I wasn't connecting with the medicine of enchantment that psychedelics had taught me was so important. I had a moment where I was staying deep in the forest with some friends who kept an eye on me and made sure I was safe, and took a very large dose of mushrooms, or what's known as a heroic dose, generally a threshold of 5 grams and above of mushrooms. When I was 4 years old, my next door neighbors gave me origami paper and an origami book. I got into it, obsessed with it, just immediately decorated the house with all sorts of creatures and characters and figures that I could create from that. I continued that constantly pretty much up until about 13 years old and beyond still, and even still now, even though I stick to primarily wire-wrapped jewelry. I did not pick up wire-wrapped jewelry until I moved at the age of 13 and was first exposed to it. I had never seen it before, and upon seeing it, I knew that that was gonna be something different for me. It was a whole new world to see. I had seen pottery, I had seen paintings, and nothing captivated me like origami until this art form. So in this new town, looking for things to do and not immediately having many friends or many activities, I used to go down to this little bead shop called Little Falls Diamond Company down at the end of Main Street in Little Falls, New York. And that was the first place I ever saw wire wraps. It was just such a great place to hang out. The two people who owned it were incredibly kind to me. They could see my excitement for the art form. I was able to scavenge some wire out of dumpsters and such, which I do not advocate legally, but I was able to get wire for free that way, and they saw my excitement and they gave me pliers for free. And then I could begin creating. And there was one other special aspect to this town I lived in, which it's in Herkimer County, the only county on Earth where you can find what's known as Herkimer diamond crystals. These special formation of quartz crystals where they're double pointed. They have 18 sides, so hexagonal symmetry. They're called Herkimer diamonds because although they're actually quartz, they are as profound and stunning, clear, and rare as diamonds. I didn't have to go into a mine or anything for these. I could walk in the woods a mile, 2-3 miles from my house, and I could just pull them straight out of the dirt. I could walk up a waterfall and be like, there's one, there's one, there's one. And so I had free wire, free pliers, and free crystals. I was always enterprising in a business sense as a little kid, like the lemonade stand kind of thing, except just with origami. Like I grew up on a kind of busy street before I moved to New York, and so I put out a stand sometimes that was just origami for sale. And then I began going to the farmers markets in my town, which were free to vend at, or maybe at least for me as a kid, they didn't charge anything. So I brought these little $5 and $10 wire wraps that I had made, and I was able to sell them, which put me in the position to start buying wire. And I could buy different thicknesses, different kinds of wire. Initially began in copper for my first few years, because silver and gold by comparison, of course, more expensive. But I sold enough copper pieces eventually to get in the position to buy silver, and so on and so forth. It's only grown. I also was on social media. I joined social media around the same time I started wire wrapping, where despite all its cons, had the opportunity to market my art and find other artists. I obsessively joined every crystal and wire wrap and jewelry related group I could find on Facebook and searched all the hashtags I could find on Instagram related to it. I quickly, over a few months, was able to add thousands of other wire wrapped artists in this budding art form. And the people who I could see were some of the best in the game, so to speak, I reached out to those ones politely and I said, hey, any chance I could pick your brain? I tried to work the kid angle. It's like, I'm 14, you know, help me out. And they were very polite and answered my questions for the most part. I asked, you know, how long have you been at this? I got answers anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And so I began to learn how young this art form actually is, which excited me further, realizing there's so much unpaved potential individually and as a whole. I also asked them, how how do you make your money from this? And they said, just posting on Facebook and Instagram or going to occasional festivals or farmers markets. They said though that the majority of their livelihood they're making through social media. And I asked, how do you pay for ads? And they're like, no, just working the algorithm. So I was given some tricks and tips about how to gain visibility, use the right keywords, post the right time of day, hashtags, groups, all that. I started to be able to get sales through there, custom orders, sell originals, and that's how I worked up to the level of affording silver, where suddenly the same designs that I could make in copper sold in silver would bring in hundreds more, and I could really start buying different gems than the ones I could find in my area, exploring different creations and different possibilities. My style now is primarily geometric jewelry, sacred geometry jewelry. There was at the time, there are now very few other geometric wire wraps, which is not a comment on quality, but it's a direction that I have chosen to pioneer in and lead in. I'm proud of that, but I also can't take credit for the fact that that niche was wide open. I stepped through the door of that niche for the first time after my first psychedelic experience ever. I had a life-changing moment with LSD and later on mushrooms that gave me a level of enchantment, wonder, and awe that I had not experienced since childhood. I also had not experienced that connection to geometry before. As I came up on this first ever psychedelic experience, gifted to me by a dear friend who gave me proper information on how to stay safe, I went into this field and it was a sunny day, but the one cloud in the sky right in front of the sun, I saw turn into the flower of life, sacred geometry symbol, which years after this experience, I finally became able to distill into my art form. I was so enchanted when I saw this because the level of the visual is not placebo. It was not, I think I see this. It's not, I want to see this. It was as real as anything else in my sober environment that's actually certainly around me. And I thought, if only I could bring this back. I can't photograph this, so how can I bring it back? I did not paint, I did not do pottery, I did not do many other art forms that I admire equally, but I had a means that I could push myself to bring this back. And from that day on, I began making geometric jewelry, which I had never done before, and little of it existed, at least in the wire-wrapped form, of course. It felt so important to me to do this because that day that I had that experience, I was so incredibly enchanted that I had a revelation for myself within it that enchantment was the opposite of depression for me. And like many other teenagers, especially one who had moved to a new town at the beginning of his teenage years, I was depressed, I was angsty, I was rebellious, I was all those natural things, but I felt deeply such. When I had this experience of seeing the flower of life form in the clouds, even though I knew, even in that moment, that it was chemically inspired or that that had an effect on making that possible, I cried like a baby instantly. I felt every bit of wonder that I felt when I built tree houses or fairy houses in the forest as a little kid, as a really little kid, and felt that fairies were absolutely real and felt that dragons were real and felt certain of those things at those ages, just like we believe in Santa till a certain point. If I could just share this feeling with others, and I know I can't convince everyone to take this chemical, nor is that the point. It's to integrate these medicines and to share stories of our experiences and to share the more loving and kind being that we can become. That way we share the medicine, not by pressuring anyone, of course. I figured out how to begin to make geometric jewelry. Those took off because they stood out very much in the art atmosphere I was in and the social media scene, where anyone who's interested can join these groups and see hundreds or thousands of different wire wrappers, and I had something unique in that world. I kept continuing to revisit psychedelics for the next year and the year after that, and still, as I've gotten older, it's just been more scarce and not multiple times a year or every weekend like it began, but it's about once or twice a year now to do a check-in for my mental health and for artistic inspiration. These things are not necessary, but they absolutely can help in certain ways with your intentions if you integrate them and if you do them safely And so I continued to get more inspiration, more answers, and I developed this artistic style of geometric wire wrapping where I also formed an important relationship, I believe, or a thought process around channeling it, where to this day, from the very beginning till now, I've never ever drawn anything before creating it. I create it as I go. I'll have an idea of where I want to go, just as you may look at a mountaintop far across from you and you can aim your needle compass there, but every step along the way, what rocks you'll hop over, what trees you'll walk around is not planned. And so I create things as I go. I think the importance of that relationship is also something that psychedelics taught me, is that art doesn't come from me, it comes through me. The difference being that I'm not pulling from a limited pool, but that this divine waterfall that flows through all artists also flows through me. And it branches into tributaries and streams. You see it branch into painters, into singers, and it's this divine waterfall or this divine electricity. Branches out, it charges all of us, it fills all of us. I get so inspired during these experiences that if I didn't create art from it, I would overflow. And I don't know what that looked like. I'd probably just babble all the time with ideas that I want to make, but when I create them, they bring me so much peace. I get the medicine of sharing that feeling that I wanted to share from the beginning, from my first psychedelic experience, of making something that's enchanting and someone else can see it through their screen. Or of course, if they get it from me or we just connect in person, they can see it and wear it and hold it, that they may too feel enchanted. And whether or not they ever take the psychedelic experience, they will find hopefully healing in that will connect them with their inner child. And that reminder that they can still experience wonder is a safe haven from the harsh realities that sometimes come with life. I experienced many of those harsh realities when I went off to college, and I went to college in Georgia to study metalsmithing and fabrication, the side of jewelry that is different than wire wrapping, where wire wrapping only requires pliers and wires and just your hand. So not the side that needs torches, drills, sheet metal, wax casting, and similar equipment that isn't so mobile, like my pliers that I can take in a bag and create from anywhere with. But I wanted to learn this art form. It was taken much more seriously. Wire wrapping was so new at that point also, so it had very much a hippie-ish connotation, and I see nothing wrong with that, but I understand that's not what everyone in society, and especially people with the money to order things and fund these art forms continuing, always resonate with. Art that had a connection to jam bands, electronic music, and those festival scenes and those lots doesn't have or didn't have the fullest widespread appeal. So I wanted to learn the jewelry that was taken seriously, the fabrication, and my goal going into that college, since this college had a great program for that, was to study that and then combine it with wire wrapping, which I was continuously trying to improve with, so that I could stand out again in making unique combinations. People on social media at least were calling hybrids, and I made a couple hybrids while I was in college, but the demands of college were so intense that there wasn't time to improve on the wire wrapping or work on it much while I had homework from my jewelry classes and much more. I was also tempted by the parties and everything else someone experiences when they move out and go to college for the first time. But wire wrapping was no longer my priority, unfortunately, or at least how I could not dedicate the most of my time. I didn't realize it immediately, but this wreaked very bad on my mental health because I wasn't connecting with my soul's deepest passion, which is to explore this art form and to pioneer and to discover and channel along the way, like how I don't work from a drawing. So that feeling was removed. I got quite depressed because I wasn't connecting with the medicine of enchantment that psychedelics had taught me was so important. I had a moment where I was staying deep in the forest with some friends who kept an eye on me and made sure I was safe, and took a very large dose of mushrooms, or what's known as a heroic dose, generally a threshold of 5 grams and above of mushrooms. During the most potent mushroom journey that I ever experienced, I had a grand pivotal moment in my life that it showed me, and I sometimes look at my life as before and after that experience, almost like BC and AD. I was still in college. I was 1.9 semesters in. I was terribly stressed and failing and flailing, disconnected from my true source of passion, which was exploring and pioneering with wire wrapping and trying to be all these other things. Also, since it was my first time living away from home and I was around all these fun, like-minded college students, I got into the party scene there. Keep it relatively vague, I developed a strong addiction for alcohol and also abused cocaine. Did both consistently because they were constantly available, and I was tempted to escapism because I was not fulfilled, aligned with my purpose, or feeling the proper connection of true soul connection with my peers that we crave and that we miss. My roommates could see that I was struggling so much, and they suggested that we go to a beautiful place to camp and offered the opportunity to drive me there. Once we got there, I was unpacking and realized that I had brought mushrooms I didn't even mean to bring. I was surprised to find them in my bag. A voice came over me of just offering me some bravery for a second, where I do feel some fear come up around taking psychedelics sometimes because I have enough experience with it to know that surrender, especially at higher doses, is necessary, it's required, it's gonna happen, so giving into it even more will just make it more positive. So I ate these mushrooms to the day. I don't know how much I ate, but it was in the heroic dose threshold of over 5 grams where a complete surrender can occur. I ate all of these mushrooms and I proceeded to have a stronger trip than I've ever had by far. I lied down and was staying actually in a little tree house, and so I went into that tree house because I realized I was about to become quite high, and so I didn't want to worry or weird out anyone else who was staying on the same land at that time of the dozen or so people scattered throughout other tree houses there. I thought I might look quite weird, which is a common psychedelic symptom that you think everyone can tell you're tripping, but not necessarily. I proceeded to feel quite vulnerable. I had this visual appear before me of trees turning into skulls, and skulls are not inherently bad or evil, they're just a thing, we all have one. So I wasn't inherently afraid to see them. I was fascinated because they felt so real. The trees looked like skulls from the profile. I started to hear this voice speak through me, say, "Something is dying, but it is not you." And this can happen on any psychedelic journey, to hear a voice speak through you, but I found particularly with mushrooms and particularly with higher amounts that that voice is very, very clearly with you and speaking through you to give you wise advice and guidance. And so it repeated, "Something is dying, but it is not you," while I saw these skulls. And so I went into my treehouse, lied down on the bed, and went through my mind and my past quite deeply for many hours until the dark of night, where I did feel that I faced every mistake I had ever made and everything that had ever been done wrong to me. And I cried and cried and cried. I wanted that part to be over with because it was not recreational, but I knew that I had to get through it, and I knew that these things are finite. No matter how tragic or hard of a life we've had or what we've done in our time, we have lived a finite amount of years, so we have not made an infinite amount of mistakes, nor have we had an infinite amount of mistakes done unto us. I knew that I'd get to the bottom of the well, and I continued this process of crying and crying and emptying out the well. I reached this moment where I also had to feel the pain that had occurred to my body from a chronic condition I had at that point, Lyme disease. It was quite painful already, but I felt it really peak. Psychedelics can make you more sensitive to everything, and so you can become aware of things that need change. I felt the damage I had done to my body with alcoholism and with abuse of cocaine and even a couple other things that I tinkered with that are not good for you. I felt the damage that had done to my brain, to my heart, and to my inner child that was wounded then. So I did not like that feeling, and I looked inward as I was going deeper and deeper into this space and feeling more and more intense from this trip, and I had a vision with my eyes closed, I saw two futures first emerging from the dark you see when you close your eyes. I saw illuminated a vision of me in the future. I was homeless and out of touch with my family and friends. I was unhealthy, I was skinny, I was not creating art of any kind, and I was miserable. It was my worst possible timeline. And then I saw that shrink and fade, and then I saw emerging temples. I saw temples that were made out of sacred geometry, much like the work I produce now that I wasn't quite very proficient in back then, or really barely beginning to make back then, but it was temples made out of sacred geometry stained glass, except the glass was gemstones, and they had literally tens of thousands of gemstones, hundreds of thousands of wires, and they combined the symbolism of all world religions, hinting at that we're all connected and that we all believe in something similar, even if we use different syllables to pronounce it. I was astounded by these. They looked like the coolest things ever. They looked like I wanted to be able to meet the artist who had made them and ooh and ah over them, not knowing that would be me in the future. And I've not yet made these temples, but I know I'm getting closer, because when I zoomed out in this vision, it showed me that first, and I saw part of the temple. One of the windows zoomed out further. I saw the whole temple, about yay big maybe. I saw my hands creating them. I saw my arms, they were strong. I saw my body, I was healthy. I saw my face, I was smiling. I felt radiant. And I saw my future self just a few years older, but looking quite different than the other vision, the vision of my worst timeline. I saw my best timeline where around me was friends and family and beautiful connections I had that were healthy and reciprocal. I was on a beautiful plot of land that I owned with glowing treehouse temples that I had built. I saw that I could have that timeline. I saw that I could have either. I had to make the decision though. It gave me the absolute confidence that I would be able to have that timeline if I made the contract with the universe. I will do these parts if you help me with these parts. That confidence that that experience had instilled in me could not have been given to me by someone else cheering me on, although it did remind me that I have a lot of people who loved me, and that also helped me on becoming sober. A purge that came in the form of tears and just came in the form of a lot of beautiful expanded awareness to see what I had to change, what I had to improve. And one of the biggest revelations from that entire mushroom trip was that I needed to drop out of college because it was the most time-consuming element of my life, and I had been told by our culture that that's the only way, and for certain professions it may be. But as an artist, I knew already at that point that creativity comes from within, and my college could not convince me otherwise. They could not tell me that, oh no, it only comes from a $200,000 tuition over 4 years, otherwise you won't have these talents. I knew that I could figure out how to advance myself with wire wrapping. And during this mushroom trip that was so profound, I saw the next 100 pieces I would have to make, that I could make, to become self-employed. I had made only about $2,000 or $3,000 total from my art combined in my lifetime at that point. So many sales in the last few years were 50 to 100 leading up to this point. But then I made the leap of faith to become fully self-employed with my art through posting it through social media, as I'd been building a following since as long as I had been wire wrapping, from 13 and a half and on. The psychedelic experience, because I was making these decisions in that heightened state, enabled me with the faith to trust that if I made this deal with the universe, if I made this deal with, you can give it any name, you know, God, Krishna, whatever you prefer, I made this deal, then the universe would meet me on it. I would drop out of college because that's not truly what I was meant to be doing, and I would pursue what I'm truly meant to be doing, which is this art form that found me. I would take it as far as I possibly can with the intention of bringing forth greater enchantment and the medicine of that magic as my highest priority, and in turn it would take care of me. And that's something that you could tell to an artist friend. That's something you could tell to yourself in the mirror at that stage in life, but it might be hard to catch on for someone to say, okay, I'm certain you're right. But what I got out of that experience was not a hint of doubt that if I dropped out of college, the very next day after this trip, which I did, if I made a vow to never accept money for something that wasn't my dharma, this sole duty of my art and this specific art form, then I would be completely taken care of, even if it came close. But I always stayed fed, I always was able to pay rent, and many months it was close. From 19 and on, the first year of my self-employment, after dropping out of college 2 semesters in, I made rent that I needed on the last day from someone reaching out of the blue and saying, hey, I'm ready to place a custom order. I took on many, sometimes I felt overwhelmed, but I always made it, and everything always worked out and has only ever grown, and I'm still here. I've gotten better at what I do. I bring forth more wonder, I believe, has made me more prosperous, and it has allowed me to explore the world. It feels reciprocal that I have gone on this mission to bring enchantment forth and share it with others. I have been able to fund journeys to Costa Rica, and I can do this art form anywhere, so I can sit on a mountaintop and on a beach. I'm about to go to Europe and just bring myself that enchantment too. That feels like the deal the universe gave me, because I trusted what I learned in those experiences. I followed my highest self, which the mushrooms and the acid had put me in touch with, and I will continue to do so, and I will continue to share my story, because whether or not you take these medicines, if you follow what you're really meant to do, then a divine light will help you and will guide you. In my life as an artist, the role of psychedelic medicine has been very beneficial and enormously positive. But if you are an artist looking to go into these journeys with a similar intention to bring back some of the beauty of that realm, some of the expansion of ideas, of new thought processes, it is important to be aware that those journeys also come with the rest of what can come with it, such as the vulnerability one can face, going through your past, potential hallucinations, things that are difficult to feel, important to feel, and healing to release, but not always easy. Safety is very important too. There are ways that you can prepare yourself when you're sober before you ingest anything as an artist or as any human being, whether or not you create art also. I cannot go into these experiences thinking I will only mine the gold from it, that I will get great ideas and just come out of it and be able to create those. That will happen too, seems to happen every time, but I have had a lot of tears on psychedelics. I've faced a lot of fears on psychedelics, and I'm forever glad I did, even if it was difficult during. Some of the things to be aware of is that psychedelics do not inherently do everything for you. They assist a lot, but it's collaborative. So whether you are an artist of any type or not, and you may discover from a psychedelic journey that you are an artist, even if you didn't create before or didn't think of what you do as an artist, you should take mind to do it in a safe environment. Doing it deep in nature can be incredibly beautiful, incredibly positive. That's where many of my best journeys have been. So making sure first and foremost that your physical body will be taken care of, even if you flop around on the grass or need to lie down and cry or giggle and whatever comes through. Surrender is the key element of a psychologically beneficial experience from these sacred medicines. You may have to feel accountability for mistakes you've made. You may remember things that were done wrong to you, and in the cases where I have felt these in very heightened psychedelic journeys, where I faced the toughness of my mistakes or mistakes unto me, what happened on the other side of just summoning up a bit of bravery to face these, and also accepting that sort of no matter what you have to surrender, so you might as well do it willingly, you know, go down the slide without holding on to the edges, then you can attain a lot of peace on the other side of that. I did not have my face shoved in it. I was not shown, you're bad, you've made mistakes, you're bad, or here's this horrifying replay of something you once went through. When I faced my biggest mistakes in this life on the highest dose of mushrooms that I've ever taken, it felt like the mushrooms spoke to me from inside me, like a distinctly different voice than just my own self and my own ego. And I call it an accountability hug. It hugged me and said, I'm so sorry you were hurting so much in those moments in your life that you felt you needed to behave that way. that you felt your only option was to be hurtful towards others. It also helped me see the pain of anyone who had ever hurt me, and I forgave them fully. I wept for them because I knew they were moving through the same things, that they had so much pain in them that that's why they behaved towards me the way they did. It doesn't excuse or justify things, and we should still make apologies where necessary, which these medicines have also helped guide me to do, give me the courage to do, and helped me through collaboration, through also asking the medicines to help show me the way and not just expecting the medicine to do it for me, come to greater emotional maturity of how to properly apologize, to not gaslight, to not manipulate, but to apologize in such a way that the person you speak to feels understood, feels seen. Things from my past that used to feel so painful to even think about or look at, I'm aware that they happened. I'm aware of what I've done. I'm aware of what's been done to me, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't bother me. I wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I'm 99% at peace with any of these things, and what that frees up in me is so much of my mental space that was filled with regret, that was filled with all these unproductive thought patterns. If only I could change the past, if only I could fix it, if only I hadn't done this, if only someone hadn't done that to me. Because you just can't. But what I can do is become more loving, share that love with myself where it's most important. When you love yourself, you are kinder to others, just as when you don't love yourself, you can be worse or you can be reclusive. But I can share myself with the world just like I want to share my art with the world. Share beauty, be proud of it, share love, share really authentic expression, share deep communication, deep apologies, deep appreciation. And the reflections that receives in turn is phenomenal friendships, good family relationships, permanent gratitude, and hope and optimism for the future when sometimes I didn't feel that way. My art saved me, and psychedelics showed me that it could. And I followed through, and I continue to integrate that, and I have a beautiful life I'm so grateful for now, where my art keeps me fed, it keeps me sheltered, and it takes me to beautiful places around the world with friends, and it will continue to do so. And when I make these temples, I'll share them with everyone. Everyone has a version of this in them. Us artists have a version of this inside us, and I'm excited to see your temples, whether it be a movie or a musical, pottery, or anything else that might come through you. I'm excited to see your temples, especially if you let go of the things that are holding you back, and you need hope and you need some faith, not necessarily in a higher power, but in yourself. There are greater highs than the cheap and temporary ones you might pursue that may be harming your body or your mind. That the bliss of getting to follow your passion, of getting to feel that your relationships have had healing, to get to feel that you've forgiven yourself. All the bliss that can come from integrating these experiences as an artist or not is infinitely better than any other substance provided me. That my sober waking life, even when I haven't had a psychedelic in a year or more, is such a great place to be that I wouldn't trade it for any temporary pleasure. Psychedelics helped me permanently see now that we are infinite, that I will never run out of creative ideas, creative expansion, nor will I ever run out of hope, of certainty that any pain, any heartbreak can find healing, can find freedom and relief, that I will always be able to find my way through any challenges to get to a brighter place in life. And I do not need to continuously return to them for that experience, for that knowledge. But if I choose to, then that knowledge will be renewed so beautifully, and I can return to life with so much confidence and so much excitement for the future. And I can integrate that by always reminding myself what I learned during those experiences, and always sharing that with those around me, that I know I can grow my ability to love, my ability to forgive, my ability to create more beautiful art, my ability to draw the attention to it that will bring me the resources I desire and need for my best life, and to be able to share that with others. Psychedelics showed me that we are all infinite in these capacities.
Thank you for watching, and please remember to like this video and to subscribe to our channel.
For more information or to make a donation towards our cause, please visit our website.